Kilam. Hi, Indu. How nice to see you. We go back many years. So for me, the only reason I'm here is because it's Kashmir, and I always find that my emotional ties are very strong. Now the subject, maybe shall I make a few remarks and then say
Sure.
the one
Yeah,
sentence that yeah, okay.
sure,
Because
ma'am.
I think there are people like Indu and all who know a lot more than I do, but I think you have still been very partial to me. So here, I'm just going to give you some thoughts that I've been mulling over. Um, uh, to Violence against women and children is something which is endemic, not just within India, but globally. And that is why the figures of violence against women, and especially in terms of figures, are that 1/3 of the population of this country, half and half being men and women, 1/3, 33% are subject to violence during all times. And COVID-19 has been like a magnifying glass which has opened the rot of patriarchy. And this violence against women and children has become a phenomenal issue across the world, not just in India, but across the world. So it is, as I said, it has acted like a magnifying glass. There is a movement. I'm sure Indu is very well familiar with it, the movement of 1 billion rising, where we say that 1 billion people across the world have to rise to stop violence against women. And this movement has been now going on for the last 15 years globally. And what COVID-19 has done is that the viruses of patriarchy, inequality, and majoritarianism have suddenly, become very pervasive and evident. We see it in the contrast. In countries where was more egalitarianism, it's the whole COVID-19 vis-a-vis violence is dealt with much better. We think of countries like Scandinavian countries, countries like Canada, where there is relatively more egalitarianism. Within India, there is a state like Kerala, which has dealt with it in a more humane manner. But what has happened is that and this is nothing, I'm not saying anything which is anything new that people don't know, that confined within the walls of the house 24/7, what happens is that violence which is dormant surges. And who does it surge on? Who does it target? It's the weakest and the most vulnerable. And the weakest and the most vulnerable, excuse me. The weakest and most vulnerable being women and children. Men, and I'm talking to men across this webinar who are sensitized, who are, in a sense, have the quality of Ardhanarishwara, which is there is a feminine quality which is extremely important, whether it's all the great religious leaders of the world, including Islam. There was a very deep understanding and a great empathy towards women. So I'm realizing that people in this webinar are imbued with that quality. But what happens is, generally, when men find themselves unable to go to work. Often they are not able to bring money into the house, no job, no self-esteem, no way of showing their machoism. Then what happens is that all the base emotions come to the fore. People have across the world are living on credit economy. So how are they going to fulfill the kind of demands that are being made on their wallet? There is no way. There is no way of going and giving a vent to their emotions in a football field, in a wrestling match, in pubs, in food stadia, in kabaddi studios. There is nothing of that available. So all of that becomes then targeted on those who are the most vulnerable. In this cutthroat competition, there is violence galore, which is being reported all the time. The National Commission for Women, and I was a member of the National Commission for Women from 1997 to 2000. And now the National Commission for Women has reported a great increase in domestic violence. And the increase in domestic violence is often unreported because the person who's suffering from the domestic violence is not able to summon any enforcement to stop it, because where do you go? So it's a kind of a double jeopardy for those who are subjected to it. The UN Women, the United Nations have all spoken about this violence. Innumerable workshops have addressed this violence. And you see, what has happened is that जब कोई जुल्म होता है, जब कोई दुनिया में जब जुल्म होता है, तो उसमें इंसान की जब सबसे ज्यादा जो बेस नेचर है वो उभर के आती है. तो इस वक्त ये हुआ है कि जब सबसे जो जलालत होती है इंसान की, तो जब कोई क्राइसिस होती है तो वो जलालत उभर के आती है. और वो अब किस पे वो जो है उसके टारगेट कौन है? जो सबसे कमजोर हैं. ये मैं कई दफा कह चुकी हूँ. मगर उसमें औरतें भी हैं, उसमें दलित भी हैं, उसमें गरीब भी हैं, और जो हमारे देश का माहौल चल रहा है उसमें मुस्लिम कम्युनिटी को टारगेट किया गया है. इसके बहुत ज्यादा एग्जाम्पल्स हैं. मैं जहाँ रहती हूँ, मैं जामिया में रहती हूँ. आई लिव नेक्स्ट टू शाहीन बाग. आई लिव राइट इन द यूनिवर्सिटी कैंपस, राइट नेक्स्ट टू शाहीन बाग. सो मेरे लिए ये रोज रोज का एक हादसा है जो होता है. मगर इस वक्त हम वो डिस्कस नहीं कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि उसके बारे में हम सब अच्छी तरह से जानते हैं. और उसमें ये भी देखिए कि जब ये सब वायलेंस हो रहा है, उस वक्त what is also happening is you also see another aspect of it, which is huge kinds of manifestations of love. आप देख रहे हैं कि लंगर लग रहे हैं, गरीबों में खाना बट रहा है. People are going all out at the risk of contracting the infection. लोग जा रहे हैं अपने ऊपर तकलीफ उठा के. किस तरह से फंड रेजिंग हो रही है. I'm not talking of government of India. I'm not even talking of the Prime Minister's fund. That's another subject I don't want to discuss. But I think वो जो एक इंसानियत है वो भी उभर के आ रही है. मगर उसके साथ साथ ये तशद्दुद जो है ये भी उभर के आ रहा है. और इस तरह से आ रहा है कि the people who are targeted, as I said, they're the worst off. अब कोलंबिया, साउथ अमेरिका में जो एक देश है कोलंबिया, वहां इन हालात में भी औरतें निकल आई हैं सड़कों पे अगेंस्ट वायलेंस. यानी अगेंस्ट वायलेंस अगेंस्ट वुमेन. इन हालात में निकलने का मतलब यह है कि जैसे इस वक्त अमेरिका में ब्लैक्स के लिए पूरा अमेरिका के यूथ और ह्यूमन राइट्स डिफेंडर तो सब निकले हैं, इसी तरह से कोलंबिया में औरतें निकली हैं अगेंस्ट वायलेंस अगेंस्ट वुमेन इन हालात में। और इसमें कोई लीगल रेमेडी है ही नहीं इसके लिए। इसकी रेमेडी सिर्फ ये है कि लोगों को किस तरह से उनके यहाँ उनके दिलों में और दिमागों में एक तब्दीली लानी चाहिए। और दुनिया के हर मजहब ने इसी तब्दीली के लिए, जो सबसे बड़े बड़े मजहबों के बानी हैं, उन्होंने इसी सेंटिमेंट को सबसे ज्यादा एक तरह से हैज गिवन द ग्रेटेस्ट इम्पोर्टेंस। एंड क्राइसिस सेंटर्स वगैरह सब फंक्शन कर रहे हैं, मगर जब तक इंसान इंसानियत को, नाउ एक और बात कह के मैं अपनी बात खत्म करती हूँ, अब वो ये है कि जो गैर बराबरी है हमारे, जिसके the hierarchies within which we exist, गैर बराबरियां जो हैं, उसको कोविड-19 ने एक तरह से उसका सबको एक सफ में लाके खड़ा कर दिया। Everyone is standing in the same line, एक ही सफ में सब खड़े हैं, क्योंकि चाहे वो डेवलप्ड मुल्क हो, चाहे वो सुपर डेवलप्ड मुल्क हो, चाहे वो हम लोग हों जो डेवलपिंग मुल्क कहलाते हैं, चाहे वो सब सहारन अफ्रीका हो, everyone is in this. And if we don't learn this lesson now, and if we don't learn that humanity is the most important attribute for us, we will not be able to ever forgive ourselves, and perhaps, you know, the whole world may come to an end. So that's really all I want to say. And once again, I thank you, and I really appreciate this. And I wish you a very important and a very meaningful and fruitful session. And thereby, the webinar is open. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's always a great treat to listen to you. And thank you so much for guiding us and telling us about what is happening and formally inaugurating this webinar. We are really thankful to you. Thank you so much, ma'am. So now I'll request our second speaker for the webinar, Ms. Fozia Paul. She's a civil judge and a first-class magistrate. And so what is, when we talk about increase or surge in violence against women and children, so what is the role of judiciary in addressing this violence against women and children? I request you to please speak for words and tell us about the role of judiciary.
Thank you, Mehran. I feel really very privileged and honored to be sharing this evening with all of you. I'm really impressed by the words of Miss Hamida, but I would differ on only some points. Now, it's really great to see you working like this for creating awareness amongst people. I really appreciate. Now, before going into the role of judiciary, I would just have a very brief introduction to why all these legislations were required. As rightly pointed out by Ms. Saida Hamid, domestic violence is undoubtedly a human right issue and a serious deterrent to the development of any nation. The United Nations have been every now and then recommending that states should enact laws for this vulnerable section of society, which includes women and children. Now, this violence is, of course, widely prevalent, but largely invisible. Why? Because it is not reported as other crimes, as other things are reported, due to various reasons, due to the typical patriarchal setup in the society, then due to the fact that women and children, they are very vulnerable sect of the society and they don't open about these things. There can be societal pressure also, or any other such type of pressure, as we all know. So these all legislations for this special class of society were introduced, keeping in view the rights guaranteed under the Articles 14, 15, and 21 of the Constitution. So it covers all those females and children who are being subjected to any abuse, be it verbal, physical, sexual, with since there are two sections like protection of women, violence against women, and violence against children. So I would deal first with violence against women. I feel really very proud to share with you the role of judiciary, and most particularly the judiciary of our state. I think the role of judiciary in dealing with these type of cases has been very proactive. The judiciary has played a very proactive role in ensuring and guarding the safety of women and children. It has really acted as a guardian, and it has ensured that the rights available to the women, they are given to them, especially during this lockdown. I would personally would like to say that the judiciary of J&K state, especially our Honorable Chief Justice, Her Ladyship Justice Geeta Mittal, ma'am, she has been very proactive. Every now and then during this lockdown, she has been asking us, she has been monitoring all these type of cases. She has been asking for reports. She has been seeking orders from us, ensuring that the violence against women, which was on a surge during this lockdown, since they were locked up, many of them were locked up with their abusive partners. So she has played a very, very proactive role during these days. Now, with regard to the children, we have a separate legislation. We have a Juvenile Justice Act, which deals with it, with those children under the age of 18 years. And here I would like to say that first, the juvenile issue was being treated by the social welfare this department and all, but it is only on the insistence and persistent effort of our Honorable High Court, especially Honorable Justice Mr. Ali Muhammad Magre, that a separate wing was created for the protection of these vulnerable children. They are children who are in conflict with law, then they are children who are in need of special care and protection. Our Honorable Justice Ali Muhammad Magre, he has been monitoring all those cases during lockdown. He has been ensuring that the decongestion of juvenile homes and that minimum possible number of juveniles are kept there, and with clean atmosphere, with friendly atmosphere, so that they open up about their problems. Then with regard to women, we have penal provisions also, then we have civil also. In penal, I would like to quote section 125 of CRPC. Section 125 of CRPC. It deals with the maintenance of destitute women and children who are being abandoned by their spouses, fathers. So the court deals with it, and then the judiciary is ensuring that it is to be done on a speedy basis. Like their rights are, they have been, there is a provision for interim maintenance till the case is finally decided. We grant the maintenance. Then we have section 498A of IPC, which deals with cruelty related to women. If any female is subjected to any cruelty by her husband or in-laws, she can come with an application for before the magistrate concerned, and then the magistrate would accordingly put the other person to trial. Now we have a separate legislation which is in addition to all other legislations like this dowry, death and all. Besides this, we have an additional this legislation, this act for women, which is Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act. It's a very important act, and it's still evolving. It ensures every sort of protection for women who are living with their abusive partners, who are or have been living with their abusive partners in a shared household, and they are being given several reliefs by the magistrate. Like she will be given this ex parte interim maintenance. Then she can be given shared accommodation in the household, in her matrimonial home, even though she has no title towards it. So you understand, it's like even if they are living in a rented accommodation, then also the woman is entitled to have a shared accommodation. Plus, if she is fearing any sort of violence from the in-laws or her husband, then she can even, she she can even ask the court for appointing a protection officer. Those protection officers are being designated by the government. So she can ask for other monetary reliefs like compensation for the violence and damages done to her. Then she can even ask for custody orders, custody of children. The court is empowered to give temporary custody of children also to the aggrieved female. Then there are other, like I said, it's the courts are giving protection orders. And then if the protection officers, they are not acting in accordance with the orders of the magistrate, or they are violating any of the orders, then there's a penal provision also in that. Like they can be punished for that, for such violation, which would include imprisonment up to the period of 1 year, or fine up to an amount of rupees 20,000, or both. So we have, like, our courts, they have uh, enshrined many other mechanisms, like we have vulnerable witness depositions. This is for our the section, the vulnerable section of our society, like we have rape victims, we have uh, this abuse victims, then we have children under POCSO who have been subjected to sexual violence. We have such children, such females who don't have to come to the main court. They are being taken to the vulnerable deposition cell. That is a room which is in the courtroom, which is in the court complex itself, but it has a separate way of entrance, so that the abuse she doesn't meet her or his abuser. And she's being comforted in a very in a room, along with a paralegal volunteer who asks her questions. Questions are not directly asked by her, but those tells the answers, gets it recorded in the courtroom. So the accused is in some other room, and though he can see the this victim, but then there is no direct contact between the two. This is all done by the proactive role of the judiciary, which was not there in the books, at least. So this has evolved with time. The domestic violence act is there, which also gives other things, like those females, even if they don't have any contact with the spouse or in-laws since a considerable time, even then they are entitled to all the rights, like monetary and other. So basically, this is the role of judiciary. And during this lockdown, I would particularly quote that our Madam Lord Chief Justice, she has ensured that helplines should be established, and she established helplines all over the state for ensuring the protection provided to the safety of women and children. Wherever these then we have Legal Services Authorities Act also, which are giving free legal aid to women and children, those who are destitute. And we are and we are conducting uh, such camps, because the judiciary, over a time, it has become very dynamic. We have gone too ahead of time. We are going from door to door, just to make people aware, especially the most vulnerable section. In any other abuse, it can be mental abuse also. So every such type of awareness is being created by the judiciary, and a constant feedback is given to our honorable high court for all the actions done. So I really think that judiciary has a very great role to play in all these things. Thank you. Over to you, Mehran.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really helpful and enlightening. And there are many participants who have joined us from different parts of the world. And it's really helpful to know about the services available and the role of judiciary. And thank you so much. And, when we talk about surge in violence against women and children, especially during this lockdown. I've read several articles. There's a huge increase in violence against women and children. And this is why the whole idea of organizing this webinar came to our mind, and we are planning, we are recording this webinar, and we'll prepare a report that will be sent to all the panelists and the concerned authorities as well. We will also share the report with participants. Thank you so much, Fozia ma'am. This was really helpful. Thank you so much. Now, I just received a message from one of our speakers, Ms. Simala Prasad, who is an IPS officer. She's at the moment in field. She'll try to join us later. But meanwhile, we have our next speaker, Maulana Dr. Sayyidur Rahman Shamus Saab, who is Secretary Mutahid Majlis Ulma J&K. So, Maulana Saab, when we talk about violence और ये तशद्दुद के बारे में बात करते हैं, तो इस्लाम के हवाले से जब बात करेंगे जो तशद्दुद हो रहा है ये औरत ख़वातीन या बच्चे हैं उन पे, तो इस्लाम के हवाले से हमें ज़रा समझाएं कि उनके क्या हुकूक हैं, जो ख़वातीन हैं या बच्चे हैं उनके क्या हुकूक हैं और इस्लाम इस बारे में क्या कहता है, और ये जो तशद्दुद हो रहा है बच्चों पे या ख़वातीन पे, ये कैसे रोका जाए? मौलाना साहब, आप जरा अपना ये अनम्यूट कर दीजिए ताकि हम आपको सुन पाए। आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है हमें, मैं आपको अनम्यूट कर देता हूं, एक मिनट। जी
आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
जी जी, अब आप सुन रहे हैं हम।
आवाज आ रही है?
जी जी जी।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। मैं सबसे पहले अपनी तरफ से और मुत्तहिदा मजलिस उलमा जम्मू कश्मीर जिसके फाउंडर और चेयरमैन हैं जनाब मीर वाइस डॉक्टर मौलवी और जो मुसलसल 5 अगस्त से अपने घर में नजरबंद रखे गए हैं, मजलिस में शामिल तमाम अधिकारियों की तरफ से मुबारकबाद पेश करता हूँ इस वेबिनार की इनेकाद के हवाले से, और तहनीत पेश करते हुए अर्ज करना चाहूँगा कि आपने बिल्कुल बचा तौर पर फरमाया है और सही किया है कि आज के हालात में जो ख़वातीन और बच्चे तशद्दुद के शिकार हो रहे हैं, घरेलू तशद्दुद के शिकार हो रहे हैं, इनके हुकूक क्या हैं और हमारी जिम्मेदारियां क्या हैं। मैं अर्ज करना चाहूंगा कि इस हवाले से खतीब हजरात
मौलाना साहब, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है।
आवाज आ रही है हमारी?
जी जी, अभी आ रही है।
आवाज आ रही है?
जी, अभी आ रही है।
अच्छा, मैं शुरू से करूं या जहां से मैं ये अर्ज कर रहा था कि आपने इंतहाई हसास और अहम मौजू का इंतखाब किया है और इस वेबिनार के तमाम से आपने अपनी जिम्मेदारी को महसूस करते हुए कौम को ये पैगाम देना चाहा है कि कोविड-19 की वजह से खुसूस जो एक मायूसी का माहौल है और घरों में लोग बंद पड़े हैं लॉकडाउन की वजह से, इसकी वजह से भी इस तरह के वाकयात पेश आ रहे हैं जो इंतहाई अफसोसनाक हैं। जहाँ तक हमारे कश्मीरी मुआशरे की हम बात करें तो मैंने भी अर्ज किया कि इस्लाह मुआशरा के ताल्लुक से, घरेलू तशद्दुद को रुकवाने के हवाले से, कि आज हमारी नई नस्ल जो शराब व कबाब में मस्त होने जा रही है और मंशियात से, और आपका हैरत होगी, आपने 3.5 करोड़ रुपए खर्च होते हैं एक दिन के अंदर यहाँ मंशियात, ड्रग्स वगैरह। तो समाज किधर जा रहा है, हालात क्या बन रहे हैं, इसके अलावा जो और दीगर मसाइल हैं खवातीन के ताल्लुक से, तो मजलिस उलमा ने कोशिश शुरू की है इसमें इस्लाह अहवाल की, और मैं अर्ज करना चाहूँगा कि इस ज़िम्मन में 24 जुलाई 2019 में 24 जुलाई 2019 में जनाब मीर वाइज ने तमाम उलमा की कॉन्फ्रेंस बुलाई थी। उसमें यही तमाम मसाइल ज़ेर गौर थे कि साहब औरतों के हुकूक को किस तरह हम बहाल करें, विरासत का मसला है उनके, इसी तरह से उनके साथ जो ज्यादती हो रही है, समाज में तलाक की शरह बढ़ रही है और औरतों के हुकूक पामाल किए जा रहे हैं, बच्चों के हुकूक पामाल किए जा रहे हैं। इसी तरह से मॉडल निकाहनामा, मियाँ बीवी के क्या हुकूक होने चाहिए, इस्लाम ने किस तरह से इनकी वजाहत की है, इन तमाम मामला पर पेशरफ हो रही थी, बनाई गई थी। लेकिन दुनिया जानती है कि 5 अगस्त के बाद जो सूरत हाल उभरी, तमाम चीजें
मौलाना साहब आपकी आवाज कट रही है, बार बार हम सही से सुन नहीं पा रहे हैं। मुझे लगता है अगर आप थोड़ा सा किसी और जगह पे जाए जहां आपको बेटर नेटवर्क हो, हम आपकी आवाज सुन नहीं पा रहे हैं। मौलाना साहब आपकी आवाज बिल्कुल नहीं आ रही है। सभी जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स वगैरह हैं वो कह रहे हैं कि आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है और वो आपको सुन नहीं पा रहे हैं। तो मेरी आपसे गुजारिश ये है कि अभी हम दूसरा जो सेशन है, हमारे जो दूसरे स्पीकर हैं उनसे सुनते हैं, जब तक आप किसी और जगह जाए जहां पे आपको बेटर नेटवर्क कवरेज हो। इंशाल्लाह हम अभी आपसे फिर राब्ता करेंगे। तब तक आई वुड लाइक टू रिक्वेस्ट मिस हमीद अख्तर, हु इज a KS officer, and currently she works as STM West Srinagar, and who knows about ELFA, ELFA International, and has already attended several events, including International Women's Day, which we organized this year in March, and we were lucky right before the lockdown we could organize this event. And her speech and her presence was very inspirational, and she's really concerned about this issue of violence against women and children. And she has a deep understanding of this issue because as STM in Patan, she shared her story last time when we were together, and then she has a deep understanding of this issue. So, ma'am, if I could request you to talk about the role of administration, because you're an administrator, you work in administration. So, what is the role of administration in addressing this violence against women and children? Over to you, ma'am. आप जरा, if you could unmute your audio so that we can hear you, ma'am. We can't hear you at the moment. Hamida ji, we can't hear you. If you could unmute your audio so that we can hear you. जी, मैंने यहाँ से आपका अनम्यूट कर दिया, आप वहाँ पे अपना जो ऑडियो है, जी.
Yeah, got it. Assalamu alaikum, Mehran Saab, and my salam to every very valuable dignitary and inspirational dignitaries over here. If you allow, I would like to put forth some lines by an 18-year-old daughter of mine. She has
Sure,
put
please
it
go ahead.
yesterday today. Yeah, and this was to a man. The title was to a man. And what she wrote is, not only physical but verbal also. Women are teased and put down very low. Threatening them, we are going to throw what? A package which her parents gave you, or a garbage which her in-laws understand her. Remember that pain is not only given physically, by your taunts to a man, by your taunts, you drain her emotionally. By your malversation, you spoil her spiritually. By their encumber, the fair sex is wrenched fully. Now, coming to the topic, I would like to share here. Are you getting me, Mehran sir?
Yes, we hear you, ma'am. We hear you. Yeah.
You are hearing me?
Yeah, everybody is hearing. Yeah.
I am. Yes. What is the role of administration with respect to domestic violence? Briefly, I may go to the topic. What is administration? It is not a single entity. I mean to say, it is a teamwork. It is a coordination of almost, I may talk about Srinagar, it is more than 53 departments which work together, then comes into existence the term administration. And the term is a complex organization, the administration being a complex organization of management, motivation, and leadership. With respect to domestic violence, one of our departments, that is social welfare department, is engaged with it fully as the grassroots worker, that is Anganwadi worker, has been assigned the job to have door-to-door survey about the domestic violations over there, and they have to report that to their supervisors, who in turn have to report to their CDPOs, who are designated protection officers for this purpose. Moreover, administration has done all over the 22 districts of J&K, erstwhile J&K, I may say, there had been opened some centers. They are called as one-stop centers. Under single roof, there had been the assistance to the domestically violated woman, or I may say the target group, regarding their medical aid, their legal aid, their whatever their police assistance they need there, whatever they share with respect to their shelter homes. If they need, they can be provided shelter for 5 days at the centers, as at these designated centers. And this is what administration is doing there. With respect to the protection officers, they have a role between the magistrate and the administration. They have to assist the magistrate in discharge of their function under the Act of Domestic Violence. They have to make a domestic incident report to the magistrates. They have to make an application in such a form and assist the aggrieved person in this thing. They have to ensure the aggrieved person is provided the legal aid, whatever required. They maintain the list of service providers. If present there, some volunteer groups and registered volunteer groups which provide the services to these personalities. They have to make available a safe shelter home. They have to get the aggrieved person medically checked up. They have to ensure that the order of monetary relief or other relief may be please made by the magistrate in the stipulated time period, which perhaps as per the act is 60 days, and other such associated workers too. This is what administration is doing with respect to domestic violence. As far as the Srinagar district is concerned, as per 2011 census, the female population in Srinagar district being about 5,85,000 around. If we will give it, I gave it a 22% hike after this time, it becomes around 7,14,000. And to my astonishment, as our valuable dignitaries, women do not come forth, it remains unnoticed. And by these figures, you may get it. We have only received at the 2018-19 at these centers, at the center that was functional at Rajbagh here for Srinagar, we have received only registered 313 cases. Those 24 who came there on foot by walk, and 204 cases we have received by 181, the female helpline number, which is operative here and in fact all over the nation. And once we go for its percentage, it is very meager. It is very meager. I may tell you, it is 0.04% for 2018-19 that the women have come forth. And for this year, to my astonishment, it is only 0.006%. Only 45 cases have been registered by these centers and by our protection officers up to this time. This is not the fact that the government is not running it, government is not, or the administration is not putting up their efforts. This is because of the reason that by one or the other reason come forward. This is the basic reason that we are lagging behind in this regard. Otherwise, we are making the advertisement through print media, through paper media, through any social media. We are making the advertisements about this. But what women are so strong, they can squeeze the earth between their palms. They are so strong. If they would come forward, violence may be abuse, economical abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, or anything like that, any harassment with respect to children or this, and they have to come forward. We do have the email IDs with our social welfare department, they are there, and we do have the helpline for females, one are children, that is 1098, that is operational, but that they are not coming with this. And I may conclude with a message to the kings of this male shamanism world, that if the males of this world consider themselves as kings, they should learn to respect their maharanis, that is their mothers. They should learn to their respect, to give respect to their princesses, that is their sisters and their daughters, and they should learn to give respect to their queens. That's all from my side, Mehran sir. Good luck. All the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's always wonderful to listen to you. And you talked about the helplines and the other numbers that are available where women can reach and call upon. So thank you so much. It's always great to hear to you. And so as I said, we will consolidate a report of this webinar, and that will be shared with all the panelists and participants and the concerned authorities, so that we address this grave issue of violence against women and children, and which unfortunately every year is increasing. If I compare the data from like previous year, this year, especially in COVID-19 lockdown, it has increased many folds. That's very unfortunate. But the idea of this entire webinar is to address this issue. This is why we had like concerned people from different departments and different authorities. Thank you so much, ma'am. Now I'll move to our next speaker, who is an inspiration for all of us at ELFA International. And she's a personal inspiration. When we started ELFA International, she is the guiding and driving force behind ELFA International. And she's inspiration to many. including me personally. So I'm talking about Professor Indu, who is Senior Advisor and Mentor of ELFA International. Besides being Senior Advisor and Mentor of ELFA International, she's part of many national organizations and working on women-related issues. And it's always our privilege to have you on this webinar or any on the events. So ma'am, if I could request you to talk about the violence against women and children and what is the role of NGOs, like, you're leading many groups, including ELFA International. So ma'am, tell us more about the role of NGOs and, civil society members. How do we address this grave issue of violence against women and children? Ma'am, over to you. One second, let me unmute you, ma'am. Yeah, so can you unmute your audio, ma'am? We can't hear you.
I've already done it.
All right.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mehran, for inviting me on this webinar, very prestigious. And I found my very old friend, Syed Hamid ji here, and I was delighted to listen to these young and so not only articulate, but so on spot. They knew what they've got to say. And I'm so happy that our future generations are in safe hands. And before I go on to my topic, I would like to start with just a little background. As COVID-19 pandemic continues to keep us hostage, in fact, the whole world, an invisible virus that holds us, all of us on ransom, and we are ignorant and helpless of the ways to combat it. Each day, the number of casualties increases, and our doctors are working tirelessly. But unfortunately, there is just one aspect of the pandemic. There are other offshoots to mental, psychological health. Growing incidents of violence are the least considered. And in fact, the United Nations very recently said that while the governments are tackling pandemics, but the first priority should be women who are harassed at home. And they're working, not only working, at the moment, I'm just concerned about the times that they are caught up in a room with an abusive environment. A Beijing-based NGO has reported that there has been an unprecedented surge in the desperate calls for help. And France, the names of these countries, which sounded like a fairy tale. Can it happen in France? Can it happen in Brazil? Can it happen in China? But we always consider ourselves a small town kind. We were a poor nation. But looking at this surge of violence there, probably it must have happened earlier too. But the pandemic has certainly made it very clear that women, children, and the aged are at the receiving end. So what we do is, when we come back to India, within the first 3 months of the 3 weeks of the lockdown on the 21st of March, we have seen manifold increase in the cases of violence against the most vulnerable part of the society. Even in Rajouri and Punj, we saw in the first 2 weeks, we had 260 cases of violence. But our problem is this: we consider violence as a very private issue. We don't talk, grow up that these things are family secrets, they ought not to be talked about. And once we are talking about physical violence, it is not only physical violence, it is emotional violence, it's economical violence. There are so many offshoots to it. And as women, I think we are all sensitive to it. We know how it is. But the worst part is in this physical distancing, usually the neighbors would come in to solve. But nowadays, nobody is going to come. So that is another issue of this pandemic, that physical distancing has caused such a great turmoil for these women. So NGOs, we have about, it's a 3 lakh NGOs in India. It is more than the number of schools that we have. And how are we going to coordinate between the various NGOs? The first thing that comes to my mind is we need to streamline, not only streamline our own NGOs, but at the same time, go and look over the country and try to catch in and rope in all of them. And people who are already working on women issues and domestic issues need to come and sit together and find out ways how to at least, if not completely clean it, but at least offer some kind of a substitute, some kind of help to these women. At the present problem that we have, we are also NGOs very recently have been stopped by funding. The government has not been very keen on the growth of the NGOs, so they are also hard pressed. But at the same time, since they would like to help, it is very important for them to gather and find out small ways to help these women and children in the age. They need to, first thing, they need to create awareness by articles in the papers, by their social media, their print media. It is very important because, but at the same time, if there are very few people who have access to telephones, papers, and your media. We need home to home moving and trying to keep them aware. But at the same time, we don't have the space now to have camps and awareness camps the way we usually have. But this media will certainly help in creating awareness. And not only that, the need of 24/7 helplines. And third, in fact, is to coordinate with the police, the law enforcing agencies. It is very important because we as such cannot do anything on our own. We can pinpoint, we can identify a case, but at the same time, we need the help of the police as well as the judiciary. Since judiciary is so proactive, it is very easy to coordinate between the judiciary, the different aspects of law and order, like police, judiciary, with the NGOs. If they work in tandem, it will be much, much easier to identify and to find some. I am reminded of an example. There was a lady who wanted help. And when she asked the police to take her to a shelter, they refused. They said, no, we cannot take you to a shelter because we need to have people. We cannot take you to the shelter. You need to go back home. And though that stopped the violence against her, but the emotional violence, who was guaranteed to that? She had to stay with the abuser. I'm talking of the present times. Probably in safer times, in the old times, the pre-pandemic, things would have been different. She could have gone to a shelter home. But now she cannot. Second, we need a legal cell which will provide assistance to the victim. And in cases of acute violence, medical assistance, legal cell, and shelters need to be provided. And this all would need money, but we do necessarily have to see where help can be provided. I understand NGOs are working in hard, difficult circumstances, but since this is the role that we have chosen for us, whatever the situation, we have to go out and help them. And I think that is all that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really, some practicalities you talked about, physical distancing and the challenges we are facing in the current times. And you rightly said something which is need of the hour, that all the NGOs working on this on this issue need to put coordinated efforts. You said there are about 300,000, 3 lakh NGOs in India. So if we all work in a coordinated manner, it can be a big task force and a driving force to address this issue. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's always an inspiration and delight to hear to you. So I'll move to our next speaker. We have Mr. Syed Faisal Qadri. And, my association with him goes back to when I started my career back in 2006 when I was with Mercy Corps. So Faisal Bhai is a friend, and he has always guided, and me personally as well. And Faisal Bhai, when we talk about this surge in domestic violence and violence against women and children, so we had like administration, we had judiciary. So you are a senior advocate, senior lawyer at High Court. So when we talk in terms of implementation, so what are the challenges and opportunities in addressing violence against women and children? So what are the challenges and opportunities? If you could tell us more about that. Let me unmute you. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. I'm just trying to find you. Yeah. So yeah, you can now speak. I unmuted you.
Can you hear me now, Mehran?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mehran. And it's so good to see our mentors in the same frame. Indu ma'am is there. I can see her smiling as usual. And we have Hamida ji, Saida Hamid ji. We have a very, very dynamic judge with us who I did not have an opportunity to appear before her. But I have seen the judgments which she has passed. I have seen the orders which she has passed on the issues of domestic violence, maintenance of women and children. So it's glad to be a part of this entire team and to discuss an issue which is very, very important for all of us. I would not go into the details of what the Domestic Violence Act would be and what the Domestic Violence Act talks about. I would only talk about certain situations which, as a lawyer and as a pro bono worker for these victims, we occasionally, confront. And I'm amazed that nobody amongst us has spoken about violence against children, although that was also a topic. But let's because there's a paucity of time also, I can understand that not everyone and everything can be covered in such 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But my basic focus would be that violence against women, if we are saying that it has gone down, or if we are saying that the percentage of the cases which are reported during this lockdown is only 0.006%, and if we are saying that yes, there are schemes in place, there are people who are working for educating people and masses, I think we are somewhere fooling around with all of us within ourselves, because it's a known fact, especially in Kashmir Valley. I have also worked in Jammu on these issues. I have worked in areas like Karna and Tangdar and Uri on issues of domestic violence. And when we are talking about domestic violence per se, we usually talk about the urban areas of maybe Srinagar city or Jammu. And we often forget the women who are stationed or living in far-flung areas, in rural areas, where modes of communication living in a very, very patriarchal society, which is often controlled by certain, people who call themselves and, would portray themselves to be the leaders of the society. So we often forget these women. Now, an important aspect about this entire issue would be that since COVID lockdown, that is post March 2020, all of us have been confined to our homes. Most of us don't go out. And there are reports by the National Commission of Women, by the WHO, and by other reliable organizations which say that there is a surge of cases within our families, and that surge has gone beyond control. Now the question would be that if in such situation the victims are confined within the four corners of their houses, and there are lockdown instructions and restrictions outside, how would a person or how would a victim go out to a lawyer, for example, or for that matter to a service provider and narrate the ordeal which she has gone through? Because according to me as a lawyer, when we talk about these issues, the most important thing is communication with the victim. We do not want to miss any small report about any such incidents. So there's a communication gap right now. And that is why I think, because one of the speakers said that there are only 0.006% in 2020 and 19 cases which are reported. I think this is the basic reason, because there is no communication between a victim and a person who is going to help her. Within the four corners, there is no help which is going to be provided to that lady, because fortunately we pose ourselves to be very, very ill. But when it comes to our women and children, I think we have lost that morality to call ourselves literate long back. So therefore, the important thing would be that once such an instance takes place, and it's not necessary that, as Induji also said, and Fozia ji also said, that it has to be a physical violence. No, it's not necessary. The violence can be a mental violence. And mental violence, for instance, according to me and my understanding would be that if a victim has been assaulted last year or 6 months back, and if she's still staying with that beast in the same house, it would amount to a mental violence to that lady. And if that mental violence continues in such lockdown period, what is the way out for such a person? The only way out which we as lawyers see is that we take that case to a court, and a judge like Ms. Fozia Paul would hear us and pass some appropriate orders. But unfortunately, right now, because of the restrictions, because of various problems which we are facing, it is not possible to reach out to every woman. So as a lawyer, I think the biggest challenge would be that I am not in a position to go and talk to a victim of such violence, or she is not in a position to come to me and narrate the ordeal which she has gone through. And unless and until I have that first-hand information about what she has gone through, I would not be in a position personally as a lawyer to go and convince the court about anything. So this is one basic challenge which I think the COVID-19 has made us to feel. The second thing which I think is, we need to understand as a society, see, you have laws for everything, but every issue doesn't go to court. You have laws for your inheritance rights. You have laws for your property rights. You have laws for your maintenance rights. You have laws for your, service matters issues. but you don't go to court every second day, because you try and resolve those things and issues within your family, within your circle, within your friends, within your employer and employee, and you are very open to accept that fact that yes, we can talk and we can discuss and we can sort that out. But when it comes to domestic violence, there is such a blind wall which is created by the male chauvinist and patriarchal society which is right now prevalent in this part. I am concentrating on Kashmir, in this part of the country, that wall would not allow a female victim to even talk about it. So the most important thing would be, you have to have that kind of understanding within yourselves, that a lady who's given up her family for you, who has given up her parents, who has given up her brothers and sisters, and she has been with you as a wife or whatever, you need to respect her basic rights. That is very important. Unless and until you don't, you have not, you, I mean, unless and until you don't understand and respect those rights, I am not sure that this thing is going to end. The third thing which I would want to tell you is that there is a lack of apathy towards such people in our society as well. Most of the cases, you would try to hush them up. I have seen it myself. Many cases come to us. They would come for the first day, sit with us, have a counseling session, discuss everything, all legal pros and cons. And then when it comes to a second meeting with such people, 90% of them would not turn up, because there are pressures from the society, there are pressures from the elders, there are pressures from the relatives. So therefore, nobody would want such a female to go to a court and take up these issues. So this also is another challenge. How are you going to build confidence in such a victim that come what may, she is ready to take on this society and this world? This is again a very important challenge. Now, another important aspect would be that if a lady comes to you, so what is the first thing when a domestic violence or any child sexual abuse happens to anybody? The first thing would be that you need to have somebody to give you a shoulder, to just take everything out of your body. You need to have some psychological help. You sometimes need psychologists who would sit with them, who would talk to them, who would make them understand that this is not your fault. This is a fault of someone who has actually done a crime, an offense. So you need to have those people around you who would psychologically, counsel such a person or a child. That connect is also missing. Now, when you come out of your homes, you gather courage, you just decide to go and fight it out. The first thing which, the first institution which comes to your mind would be police. And when you go to police or an institution which is made particularly for this purpose, I would just narrate an example. I think before this lockdown, we got a call around 8 o'clock at night that one of the lady is in distress. She has been turned out of her house. She is not allowed to come inside the home, and she needs to be shifted to some shelter home. Fortunately, unfortunately, some of us got together. We tried to contact some people in the administration, and the answer which we got was so stunning and astounding. I mean, it was astonishing to see an answer coming from an officer that it is already 5 o'clock, the offices are closed, therefore we cannot help. I mean, this is the kind of atmosphere we are living in. You have to work 24/7. Your job is not restricted from 10 to 4. You can have distress calls at midnight. You cannot tell the victim that it is not the office hours, please come tomorrow. So this is the kind of, changes you need to bring in the entire system. Now, the last thing which I would want to tell you is, because I'm just running short of time, we are very lucky right now. I'm telling you, the luckiest time we have in J&K is because of the fact that we have a lady Chief Justice. The lady Chief Justice in the High Court, who is personally monitoring each and every system in place. Her main focus right now is on children and women, apart from disability. If this time we are not in a position to plug in the loopholes, I am not sure that we are going to do it in near future. So my request to all of us and all of the participants and viewers, whoever is here, is that please get together. Please understand that domestic violence and child abuse happens in our society. Do not sit like a duck and say that these things do not happen in our society. It is happening day in and day out. People are not reporting because they are scared. People are not reporting because they don't have faith in the system. People are not reporting because they don't have anywhere to go out and tell people, to seek help. Therefore, it is not that this violence is not taking place. It is only because there is a lack of system in place, which would otherwise be very important and essential for dealing with issues of domestic violence and child sexual abuse. That's my point which I wanted to convey. Thank you so much, Mehran, and thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you so much, Faisal Bhai. Thank you so much. And these are some practical challenges you talked about, especially during COVID-19 lockdown. And this is the whole idea, like, how do we address these issues and, provide support to all the distressed women or children. So we last week organized another webinar on inclusion of children with disabilities. So when we talk about violence, there's violence against women and violence against children. And as per different reports, only around like 8 to 10% of the cases are reported actually. The actual cases that take place. Even this 8 to 10% cases of violence against women are reported, but unfortunately, the cases of violence against children seems to be unreported totally, and these children cannot go to the court of law. Or, I don't know how do we address that. And then we have another major issue: women and children with disabilities who are in any given normal situation more 4 to 5 times more prone to violence. So we also need to address this issue of women and children with disabilities. So that is like, I have received many inputs and comments from different participants in the chat box. So we'll include all of that in our report. So before I conclude and come back to our, the keynote speaker, Dr. Saida Hameed, Fozia ma'am, she wanted to share something quickly. Fozia ma'am, please tell us, you wanted to make a quick comment. Just a second, let me allow you to, 1 second. Give me a second. Please go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Very quickly, I would like to add just 2 points. One, with respect to the very low percentage of cases coming up to the protection officers, as our one of the speakers, Miss Hamida, she said that there's a very low percentage. Yes, it's a fact that there must be very low percentage because of the facts already stated by most of the speakers and advocate Mr. Faisal Qadri. But one of the reasons is also the fact that at first, when the Domestic Violence Act came into J&K, the protection officers were not designated. They are supposedly to be designated by the government. The government did not designate them, and so for the time being, the protection officers were the concerned SHOs. So it's not that the cases are not coming up. We are receiving many litigation of domestic violence related to domestic violence, and in all those cases, whenever we asked for a report, we have always asked it from the SHO, who for the time being was designated as protection officer. It is only very recently, I think a month back, that officially the social welfare department whatever they were designated as protection officers. This is one aspect. Another is that when the legislation has tried its best, I mean, it cannot be more flexible than this, that even if a person sees any violence being done, suppose in his neighborhood, or if he's passing through somewhere and he sees some violence being committed against any women or children, so in this he can go straight away and report it to the nearest magistrate or protection officer, or to the nearest police station, who can convey the same to the concerned magistrate. It's not important that the aggrieved person may himself file a report, file a complaint, but any of the persons, suppose we see domestic violence or any sort of violence being committed in our nearby places or in our neighborhood, so it is not only the person that is just quiet, it is also the neighbors, also the society that is quiet, which is not right. Every one of us, each one of us has to stand up against it, and only then we can put a dent to all of this happening. So I think the legislation has tried it best. It's the most flexible legislation that is being provided for the women and children. The children, they are being treated like the juveniles. We have Juvenile Act, like Mr. Faisal Qadri was saying, that nobody spoke about the violence related to children. I said that the violence related to children, we have a separate board, Juvenile Justice Act, for those children under the age of 18 years. We are not taking them to courts. A separate board is created which is away from the court premises. The police people which are dealing with such juveniles, they are not supposed to wear uniform. They're not supposed to deal in a police manner with the children. In the court, the environment should be, in the juvenile board, the conducive environment is created. Like, you don't have that high, this sitting for the principal magistrate who is heading the juvenile board. It is to be made very comfortable. Then the children, they are to do this and that for the betterment of children and women. So it is only due to the effort of all of us this can be cured, if at all. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful, and and this is as Faisal Bhai also said, and you also said, that we are lucky that we have a female Chief Justice, and then the way judiciary is working, it's really wonderful to hear and to learn about what is happening on ground. So if I could come back to if Saida ma'am is still there, Saida Hamid ma'am, I would request you to speak concluding words, and then we officially close the webinar. And as I said, we will consolidate a report of the webinar, and that will be shared with all the speakers and panelists and participants and the concerned departments and authorities. Ma'am, are you still there?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been listening. In fact, I've been listening to some very. Am I audible?
Yeah, ma'am, we can hear you. Yeah.
So, yeah, I just don't want to take too much time, except that someone is speaking and there's some.
Could I request others to not speak at the moment and mute their audios while ma'am is speaking? Faisal Bhai, could I request you to mute your audio?
Okay. So yeah, I want to commend you, Mehran, for doing this. I want to commend the speakers. In particular, I think there have been very important interventions from the legal side, from the NGO sector, and especially with respect to children. Children are almost always invisibilized, but in this webinar, children were also given their due place. And our colleague talked about the JJ board and the work of the judiciary. One loud and clear message that went out was in appreciation of the woman who's heading up the whole judicial system. And having a woman in that place, I think that itself speaks volumes. We are the ones who brought in, first we brought in 1997, we began work on sexual harassment. At that time, sexual harassment was a dream. Nobody thought anything, and this is just an occupational hazard. People told us, ये तो होता ही है, अब इसमें क्या करना है? We brought in sexual harassment after the Vishakha judgment. Then when we brought in the domestic violence, at that time, it was also considered to be very, very strongly opposed by a huge lobby. But the stalwarts of the women's movement, they stood their ground and domestic violence became an act. And of course, there are problems in the implementation. As I think Fozia said, that, people are generally watch and they, it doesn't concern me, so nobody wants kaun jhagde mein pade kind of thing. But I think that indifference is something which we must, it is our responsibility, and we've been saying that since day one. We have to realize that the buck rests with me. And I'm, as my friend Indu said so well, that, the younger generation who spoke today, it gives us hope. And Mehran, you held this meeting, and I'm sure it was not easy. And yet you came through. I think that also gives us a perspective into the future. And maybe COVID-19 teaches us a great lesson. And COVID-19 is a great leveler. COVID-19 has told us that there is, when it comes to a kind of a कुदरत का जब एक हाथ आता है इंसान की जिंदगी में, जो हम छोटे बड़े गुनाह पे गुनाह किए जाते हैं, and then somewhere along the line there comes this big bang. And I think that COVID-19 is a big bang, and we have to open our eyes, and we have to realize that women in every faith of in all faiths, global faiths, the status of women is very, very exalted. But in practical terms, the woman never gets what she really is an heir to. So I think this seminar, in a way encapsulates this whole idea of women being the most important instrument of development. And it's going to be a huge challenge, because a majority of our working population, migrant labor, is at a desperation point. So ultimately, who is going to pick up the debris? ये जो तोड़ फोड़ हुई है पूरी दुनिया में, इसको समेटने वाली औरत ही तो है ना. So I think that message has come through, and I'm certainly grateful sitting in Delhi. And I'm very quickly, within the next few days, I'm also going to come to Srinagar. I always come to Srinagar because it's my home. But I'm so glad that this gave me a window into the next few days when I'll make this journey. And I certainly thank you, Mehran, and thank you all the panelists, old friends, new friends, colleagues. More power to you. Over to you, Mehran.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. And we'll be eager to meet you in Srinagar and welcome here. So we do a lot of work on women-related issues, as I explained when I talked to you. And thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting our invitation on such a short notice. It's really wonderful to have you inaugurate this webinar. And I thank all the speakers and panelists and participants who have joined us from different parts of the world. I see some participants from United States. And thank you so much, everyone. This was a treat to hear to all of you. And as I said, we will consolidate a report that will be shared with all of you. I have already received the email IDs of many people requesting all of you to send your email IDs in the chat box so that we can share the report. And thank you so much, everyone. And we keep in touch. This is just a humble beginning of addressing this issue. as all the speakers said, there's a lot to be done. You know, we have to work towards addressing this issue of violence against women and children. This is a humble beginning from our side, and we will keep in touch with all of you and share the report, and then try to work as a driving force, as a collective, to address this issue jointly. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and you know, those who are from different parts of the world, have a great day ahead. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.